Ride with me to the other clans and we will defeat the sky people.
You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.
Hello, and welcome out there in podcast and YouTube land. You have reached Johnny Has the Keys, a place where two guys get together. We talk about horror and science fiction movies and television. Key influences or factors that influence those particular movies or television, and then the things that they in turn may have influenced or referenced, the key elements of them. If you're joining us for the first time, thanks so much. We'd appreciate finding out how you found us. If you wouldn't mind leaving a comment there and saying, hey, I found it, this is how, or whatever, we'd appreciate that. If you're on the YouTube world, maybe subscribe so you get notifications when we have new stuff and we send stuff to you, which we try to do at least once a week, if not more. You can also find us on Johnny Has the Keys, where you can see .com, where you can see all of our past episodes, as well as iTunes. And we'd appreciate a review on iTunes as well. It helps other people find us for the podcast. My name is
We'll
David.
have a different checklist next time.
Yes. My name is David. I'm here with Tim. Tim, what are you doing? What you been doing this week in the genre world?
Goodness, my genre world. I have ventured back into the land of Shudder, one of my favorite streaming platforms, and watched yet another one of your favorites, a foreign film entitled The Wailing.
Yay.
You would especially love this. It's Korean. We've watched and covered a couple of Korean movies that were good. We did The Host as well as Train to Busan. And I'm kind of impressed with some of these movies coming out of Korea. This one in particular is 2.5 hours long.
Oh my gosh.
It is, it gets 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. And that's
just from 3 reviews though. And that was the guys that made
actually it's not. It's from 85 reviews.
Okay. And
out of the audience score of 82%, there were 5,000 people. So not too bad.
Okay.
I'm going to try to explain this a bit without spoiling it. This movie held my attention the entire way. Even though it's 2.5 hours long, I would recommend it. And I may even, it's on our list. I may even push it for one of our shows.
Okay.
It deals with good and evil on both a metaphorical level and on both the story itself. And it has lots of horror aspects in it, including a supposed ghost, zombies, and a lot of examples of demonic possession. It basically involves a Japanese man that has mysteriously appeared in this small Korean town. They call it a village. I would call it a town. But there are village-like aspects that are kind of rural in it. And at the moment of his appearance, or at the time of his appearance, strange things start happening. There's actually a small, what could have potentially been a pandemic, where it looks like there's this disease outbreak and there's violence and murder and rape. And it turns out that it is really not a disease so much as it is what I was saying, demonic possession. And all of this coincides with the arrival of this Japanese man. So all of a sudden, he's the target. They keep blaming him. But there's this mysterious woman that doesn't even have a character name. And she has appeared. And there's also a professional exorcist that's being paid by a family. So you've got these 3 characters, and you're trying to figure out which one is really good and which one is really bad and which one is the fake, basically. And it was directed by a guy, and I'm not going to butcher all these names, but his name is Na Hong Jin. And I won't try to do the actors, but I will say that it stars him and him and him and her. And I gave you a synopsis. I'm not going to tell you how it ends up, but I do kind of like that it has some familiar tropes in it as far as the whole good versus evil thing. It's got the thing that we saw in The Host, where there's like a lovable loser character.
Mhm.
And in The Host, it was the father figure, the young single father. Well,
Mhm.
in this, there's a young single father. He is the policeman that you see in that picture. And he's a doof. And you're like, wow, I'm glad all policemen are not this dumb. But I mean, he's a victim of his own impulses, is because his daughter ends up becoming a victim, and he's trying to figure out what happens,
Mm.
what is going on. So anyway, that's all I'm going to say. It's on Shudder for those of you out there that would like to see it, and I would just like to say thanks, Shudder, for bringing these foreign films to us, because otherwise I don't think a lot of people in America, especially the average horror movie goer, would be watching these movies. So
Oh, I'm sure it'd be difficult to find. I mean, there's not like that one bay in at Blockbuster that has, you know, the new release foreign or whatever for us anymore. So, and Netflix sure doesn't. Netflix tends to be so mainstream now that they don't go with anything avant-garde. So,
well, I don't know. Netflix has a lot of foreign shows. Well, they have a lot of foreign horror, like series, zombie series in particular.
Zombie series.
Yeah, there's some Korean zombie shows on Netflix, including Kingdom and that All of Us Are Dead, which is not that great.
Right.
But when you mentioned the foreign movie section of like Blockbuster, I think of back then they only did like the Academy Award ones, didn't they?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a foreign film, Gandhi. No, that's not a foreign. What? No.
That was Richard Attenborough.
What are you doing? Yeah.
Oh, well, so what's been going on in your genre week?
Well, I finally caught up on watching all of Strange New Worlds, the new Star Trek series.
Very cool.
So season one.
So all the
complete.
episodes have already dropped?
Yeah. Season one is complete. Watched season one, finished it. And I am so conflicted, like I always knew I would be. I think it's so, it's not that it's hit and miss. It's that I'm going to have to watch them all again just to kind of delve in and look at it and everything else. I think they're doing much better with episodic storytelling. I think they're doing much better with casting. Some of the casting is great. However, the last episode, they like pulled out all of their guns, and I went, okay, you misfired on so many levels.
It sounds like J.J. Abrams.
I don't want to say anything because you may enjoy it. I think you would enjoy it much better not knowing stuff, and I don't want to spoil it. Anson Mount is playing Christopher Pike, and he's phenomenal. He is incredibly good all the way, every single episode, every single thing he's in. But you and I think I mentioned on a previous one when I first started watching Strange New Worlds that, they've got a security officer called Laan Noonien Singh, which is
Khan's
the same
like
last
relative.
name as Khan, and she's supposedly a descendant. You don't need that.
No.
It's total fan service. And the character herself is kind of cool and didn't have to have any of that.
No.
But they have it in there. You know, you have Nurse Chapel, and they're doing something different with Nurse Chapel's not that's too anti-canon or whatever, because most people know I'm a canon fascist, but I love the way they're doing it. I love the actor playing her, and I like what they're doing with her. It's kind of like the way they did Battlestar Galactica, and they reimagined Starbuck, and Starbuck was a girl. It's not that they've reimagined her as cross-gendered, but they've given her a little bit more character development, which, you know, Nurse Chapel really didn't have. She
didn't have any other than her. She had the hots for Spock. That was it.
Right. But, you know, they started to, like, remember, What Are Little Girls Made Of? They had her whole backstory with Roger Corby and all of that. And you thought, oh, we may learn some more about Nurse
forgot
Chapel.
about that. Yeah.
But then they just kind of, we're not going to do that. We're going to give it to Rand, and then we're going to give it to our random guest star chick of the week or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and then we're going to fire Rand and just stay away from women for a while.
Right. But they've done some interesting things. They're They've updated it, but not like Discovery did and totally thrown canon out the window and thrown stuff out the window. So that's good. But I recommend it to everyone, especially if you are original series Star Trek fans, because it'll either give you something to love or something to hate, or both, like I am, kind of conflicted about it. So yeah, it was a fun ride, though. It's got some great stuff to it.
Now, did that drop all at once, or did it do weekly?
Weekly. So
and
you
it was
had
for
to
how
wait,
many?
10 episodes.
Wow.
So you had to wait till they were all done. That's how Paramount is doing it, which I like. I'm my needle keeps moving, but I'm pretty much in the 90% range of I don't like binge watching. I don't.
Oh no, I'm the opposite.
I don't want everything this weekend, kind of.
Well,
thing.
I mean, I don't do that, but I do wait for them all to drop, and then I watch one a night for a week.
I wouldn't mind that even,
That's
treat
what
it
I
like
like to do.
a mini series, like they used to be mini series, where
Mhm.
they would, watch it once a night for, North and South was 5 episodes or
Right.
whatever. But I just, I do think it suffers because they're only doing 10 episodes. I did get the feeling that this last episode, they kind of had the idea for this last episode from the very beginning and said, okay, even though we're doing episodic and nothing really kind of matches, we are going to build to that final
Bookend
episode.
it.
Yeah. Which they did.
I don't mind that. I don't mind that so much. And it's good that it's episodic and that you like it, because I mean, that speaks volumes as toward why we like the original series better than any of the other shows too.
Yep.
I'm curious to watch it, but I don't know when I'm going to get Paramount. So I'll just wait and see how it goes for a while.
Yeah. Well, they've definitely renewed, and they've already shot the second season. So I'm not sure when it'll come out. Hopefully, this winter.
I heard a thing the other day that said a lot of these platforms are filming 2 series at a time. And that's why you're only getting 10 episodes, 8 or 10 episodes.
Yeah. Which bodes what I was originally saying, which going back to, okay, then do 20. We covered the original series, had 29 freaking episodes in season 1. Grey's Anatomy can do freaking an entire season for 16 freaking years.
Yeah.
X-Files. So stop it. If you guys have the money and the clout and the fan base, stop treating these series like, oh, it's 8 episodes or 10 episodes or whatever. The reason I think they have been doing it is because they've been telling one freaking story for all, and so they don't have enough. Most of these series, Discovery, all the Paramounts, and a lot of the Netflix, Stranger Things is a good example too. It's one story told over X many episodes, right? Stranger Things, I think, does it well because they're just so nostalgic and they have so many things going for them as far as that series goes. But most of these stories either could have been told in 4 episodes, or stop writing season-long stories.
I don't know if you read this. I heard this on a podcast the other day that those last 2 episodes of Stranger Things were so long because Netflix required them to only do 8. So he said, okay, the last 2 episodes are going to be 2 hours long or whatever. Correct. So and you're saying you think it's because of storytelling. I think it's more nefarious than that. I think it's got something to do with cyclical marketing and the way they know what's coming in the rest of their oeuvre of programming and know how to keep those ratings high by the way they rotate them and space them.
Oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I know Paramount is doing that because suddenly, you have the season finale of Picard, and later on that week is the season premiere of Strange New Worlds. And then Strange New Worlds and Prodigy, the new Star Trek animated series, comes out next week, kind of thing. That's
well, and even television channels have been doing it. Walking Dead's been doing it for 10 years. There's always a Walking Dead show on. As soon as one ends, another one begins, and it just goes year round, constant.
But I'm thinking if you're going to tell these season-long freaking stories, which I disagree with, even though I'm a huge Babylon 5 fan that started the whole thing to begin with, but then do it like Walking Dead does and have a mid-season finale and a mid-season premiere. But but you have more than 8 freaking episodes. I agree with you. 2 months at 8 episodes.
Well, and that is, I'll give Walking Dead that. They did 16 episodes a year, which is nice.
At least,
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think it's, we've talked about it several times on the podcast. I think it's just lazy writers who they can't come up with a beginning and a middle and an end story every week. They can come up with one big one and then pad it with a bunch of character shit, but they've got just one story to tell this year, kind of thing. And I don't like that, because Discovery has now gotten to the point, I think I mentioned it earlier, Discovery's gotten to the point where, yes, it is some big, huge arc, but we're going to tell these little stories in here, but we're not going to give them enough time because we got to get to the big story arc, kind of thing. So it's just, it looks like little B stories that are threaded in and don't work. Anyway, Strange New Worlds, recommended.
Get off my lawn.
Get off my lawn and watch The Wailing and Strange New Worlds.
That's true. I went black and white.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Well,
where are we this week, Tim? What are we talking
gosh,
about?
We speak of the devil. This has absolutely nothing to do with Star Trek or foreign Korean
zombies,
demonic possession
possession
stories.
Yes.
Yeah, no, we are going back to 1945, and I must mention, the first of our anthology films this year. We have a little bit of an anthology film theme going on, and I wanted to get a good representation from various time periods. This one is unique. It's called Dead of Night, by the way, in that it's British. A lot of things going on here. First of all, it was one of the first anthology films, or at least that anybody knows of. I can't think of another before this. If you can, let me know.
Nope.
Or
and
if
research said
knows.
Said it was really one of the first.
Another thing is that England didn't do horror movies in the 40s. So this is a very rare movie for England to have come out. And this movie went on, and this will be heavily in the keys, to basically format the future of British anthology films, namely those Amicus films that we're a huge fan of, including Asylum and Tales from the Crypt and Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah, even the other ones, the drive-in ones, House of Drip Blood and all that came from Amicus. So yeah.
Yeah. So a brief synopsis, I guess we'll break it down because there are 5 stories, but the overall arching story is that a man named Walter Craig arrives at a house in Kent owned by a Mr. Elliot Foley, supposedly to discuss renovations. And he is greeted there by a bunch of people in a room. And upon entering that room, he basically tells everybody, hey, I know all of you because I dream about you. And they find this a little strange. And he even goes on to tell them some things that are going to happen to them, including one particular Dr. Stratton, which he says something horrible is going to happen to. And Dr. Stratton tries to convince him that this is all BS. And they entertain themselves by telling stories. And these stories play into the overall obvious anthology aspect of the film. Had you ever seen this movie?
Never. I'd never even heard of this movie. And I want to say up front that it was hard to find this movie. So Shudder or Netflix or other iTunes even put this movie out there. Find it and do it, because it's it was hard to find. We ended up finding it with a weird movie site called Fandor. And my first note was, this credit sequence looks really dated and terrible. Is that the film, or is it this crazy movie app I'm trying to watch it through? Because it was really weird. It was, every time you clicked off of Fandor, it sent you back to an ad for a giant shark, and I had to restart the movie. I
saw that. It was like
times.
Jurassic Shark, and it was this monster. Yeah, it was scary. It scared me every time I saw it.
And I had to restart the app like 3 freaking times, and it bugged the hell out of me. Anyway, no, I had not seen it before. I was pleasantly impressed and also disappointed at times, but but just what they were trying to do, I thought was really interesting. I mean, this was basically, I pictured the pitch being, all right, so we've got these people, and basically we're going to play that parlor game where everyone tells their own supernatural scary story, but we're going to frame it with this device where a guy's having a dream. There we go. How about that? Let's do that this week. And it works in places. I do not think it's very scary at all. I think
it's not. And I had always heard, "Ooh, Dead of Night's one of the scariest movies. You've got to see it."
No, but I did think in 45, was it scary coming right out of the war? With a ban on horror movies in England, especially, and then suddenly this with its very moody sort of pieces. Each one has their own kind of feel to it, because it has multiple directors, multiple writers, all of that kind of slamming it all together. Very, to me, a key was, a definite key. This was Twilight Zone, the movie. The fact that movie had such different feels to everybody's sequences. And so
right, because not all of them are scary stories. Some of them are, one of them is quite humorous in more in theme more than scary.
Oh yeah.
Whereas the same thing happened in Twilight Zone, the movie with
they happen to have their one that's a Blythe Spirit sort of story.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's but I enjoyed it. I really did appreciate. I thought the acting all the way through it was very good for the time frame and for where they were. I thought overall the pacing worked for me. I like the fact that we're literally thrown into this guy driving, and then that's the bookend even the whole ending credit sequence is a bookend, which I thought was clever.
Very Twilight Zone. Yeah,
hugely Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I'm glad it was on our list. I
can tell you why.
Seen it.
Well, why I think people say it's the scariest movie you've got to see it is because of the ventriloquist dummy. I think that's what resonates with people in this movie as far as the horror aspect, because it is the first movie that I am aware of that had a creepy ventriloquist dummy. And there have been several since that have tried to cash in on it as well.
Dozens. Yeah.
So I would argue that that's what they're talking about when they say this movie's scary.
Well, also, I think it may be from the fact that, and it was a weird time. I've got in my notes, 45 was obviously a spooky and weird year because just some of the movie releases in 45 were Blythe Spirit, which is Ghost. And then there were none, Agatha Christie.
Are these all British?
Some of them are American, some of them are British, but these are the global releases that year. Picture of Dorian Gray, Spellbound,
the British writer,
The Body Snatcher, House of Fear, House of Dracula. All of these came out in 45. So it must have been a time when people were ready for the scares, I guess, after the horrors of the war. Now they're ready for horror on film, maybe?
Body Snatcher is really creepy. That's Universal. That's Boris Karloff. It's Robert Louis Stevenson.
Spellbound is really good, too. I mean, that's a great movie.
Well, and one of the writers in this movie wrote Spellbound, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't fall into any category of scary, not even to the point of, creepy. There are a couple, I think, in there that are goosebumpy kind of stories where you go, oh, okay, yeah, that would have worked as a goosebump story, like a half-hour little, thing for kids. Kind of scary, like the girl at the party, the hide and seek party is what I called it. That one was a cool little ghost story, goosebumpy tale.
I can't remember if I have a picture of that. Well, I'll go to the first one. We'll talk about the first story.
Yeah, we should probably do it in order. This is 5 stories for all of you out there. By the way, if you haven't watched this, why are you even listening to us? But anyway, because there will be spoilers. But it's 5 basic stories. I also saw in research somewhere before we jump into it, they cut the golf one in one release, I think. They said the movie was a little long, so they cut the whole comic one.
They cut the golf and the Christmas story one. They cut 2 of them.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I didn't know that, but there you go. So
for another edited release somewhere, I don't know, for television maybe. I have no idea.
Right.
I did read that though. I'm gonna probably have trouble remembering. Oh no, I know which ones. I think the first story is
Motor car racer who has a vision of death.
Okay, and the first one was directed by the guy that did the overall art. So this guy directed most of the movie. His name is Basil Dearden, and it was written by E.F. Benson.
Okay.
And then I think E.F. Benson may have written the overall story as well. But it's a hearse story. A racing car driver named Hugh Granger is lying in a hospital after an accident, and that accident looks pretty fierce.
It looks fierce. I was going, what?
I was like, man, there's no top on that car, and it is flipping.
Does he still have a head? I thought, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, one night when the clock stops while he's in bed, he goes to the window to see a horse-drawn hearse outside, where this very Clarence from It's a Wonderful Life looking.
That was me. That was my key. Yep.
Hearse driver looks up and says, "There's one room. There's more room for, or what is it? There's room for one more, sir," is what he says.
Hello, George.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Just room for one inside, sir, is what he says. And then after he is discharged from the hospital, he goes to get on a bus, and the bus driver looks exactly like the hearse driver. And what does he say? But just room for one inside, sir. And it freaks him out. He steps back and does not get on the bus, and the bus drives away and off a cliff.
Yeah, it crashes off an overpass thing. Yeah.
And that's the story. I mean, it's very easy, Tales of the Crypt kind of comic. You know, it's very short, very brief morality to it. It's just beware, you might die.
Yeah, but not so. That's one of the things that I think is kind of missing in this all the way. And I've got it in my notes is the morality. All of these are mostly fate stories. It's fate is happening and you can't change it, or you can change it, maybe, kind of thing. And we don't want to negate the bookends, because what does kind of set this all up is the fact that the things that this visitor knows about them is creepy and feels creepy to them. And that's what instigates them to the doctor to say, well, no, it's not creepy at all. There's nothing supernatural. Blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you all this because I'm the psychiatrist with the accent. Kind of thing. And so it's him trying to debunk everybody's little stories all the way through. And naturally, he's the one that ends up getting killed at the end. So there's that.
Such a horrible death.
But I thought this was a good kicker. It was a good start. It had that good kind of creepy feel to it of, oh, okay, so you can't tempt fate. Or maybe I've
got a great key that I'll come back to when we get to the keys section with this particular story, actually. You'll remember when I tell you. Okay. So moving on to the second story, this is the one we talked about being at a Christmas party. It was directed by Alberto Cavalcanti, who was a Brazilian-born French director. I don't know where they grabbed him. And it was written by Angus MacPhail, who wrote the movie Spellbound for Alfred Hitchcock that you mentioned earlier.
Yep.
And in this story, Sally O'Hara remembers attending a Christmas party, and during a game of hide and seek, she hides behind a curtain and is found by Jimmy, who tells her of a murder that happened in that very mansion that they're in. She finds a door that leads to a nursery where she hears a young boy named Francis Kent weeping. She consoles him, tucks him into bed, returns to the main room, and then is later told that Francis Kent was the one murdered by his sister Constance, and that she has obviously been chatting with a ghost. So we got a little ghost story going on.
Yeah, my one note, watch note for that is, I think Francis Kent just uses this to pick up chicks.
Maybe
because she kisses him, she sings to him, and everything else. I was going, that kid up there, he's just trying to pick up babysitters.
Well, my whole thing was when she's hiding and she finds this like secret passageway that's obviously very not unkempt, I guess is the word I'm looking for, with cobwebs, and no one goes there. And it's like, why is this little kid sleeping back in this obviously abandoned part of the house?
You know, he's boarded up in there like Cask of Amontillado or something.
Yeah, pretty
very ghost story. Yeah, but yeah.
All right, and then we have what I would call the centerpiece story, I guess, because it's the third one, and it is the one that is themed a little differently. It's kind of a comic ghost story, I guess you would say.
I didn't get comic out. No, the third one is the mirror. The third one was the
I am
nurse's
sorry.
story of the mirror.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I had jumped to the fourth story. You're right. This is the one about the mirror.
Yes.
My bad.
Which could have ended up being actually the scariest had it had a different, direction, I think, to it.
Yeah. And it's a lot more Twilight Zone-y to me than a lot of the rest.
Very much.
Right.
Even in the set dressings and the story and everything, it's very Twilight Zone.
This one was written by John Baines, who also wrote the ventriloquist dummy story. So he wrote, I guess you would say, the two scariest ones.
Okay.
And it was directed by Robert Hamer, Hamer. And it involves Miss Joan Cortland, where she tells the incident of where she gave her husband Peter a mirror for his birthday. And upon looking into it, he sees a room other than his own. That's the whole Twilight Zone aspect to me, is that he's seeing something play out in like another universe. Joan learns that the mirror's previous owner, Francis Etherington, killed his wife on a suspicion of adultery before slitting his own throat in front of the mirror. So that was the last thing I guess the mirror had captured. Peter accuses Joan of being unfaithful and attempts to strangle her, but she resolves it by smashing the mirror and breaking the curse. And that's basically the story of I don't know if it's a haunted mirror, but it's definitely
it's a Twilight Zone story.
Possessing mirror.
Yeah, definitely a possession story, coming through. We're kind of truncated into our little short story format, so we don't know enough about the backstory of this mirror other than what the guy tells her of, he basically, went crazy and killed his family, kind of, very Stephen King kind of story. I looked up Baines, and he actually did more horror in his life. He did like The Hands of Orlok.
Yes.
And did a couple of other horror stories. So, the Beast of Marseille. So, he's had some, cred as a horror writer.
I like The Hands of Orlok. I think he must have adapted it though, because it's been made several times. It was originally a silent film, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I did happen to see that about Orlok, because I have it in my notes with the ventriloquist dummy story. Yeah, my notes are all over the board, by the way. That's why I skipped ahead to another story.
Oh, that's okay.
I've got the directors in one place, the writers in one place, and the synopsis in one place. So
in the fourth story is then, like you said, a change of pace, because it is very comic all the way through, I think. Yeah.
And very funny that it was written by H.G. Wells, I thought. We've seen, him try to be a little comedic with the movie we covered last season, The Invisible Man. However, it was more like he was a maniac than comedic,
right?
Because he was just running around killing thousands of people.
It's based on the story by H.G. Wells, right? But he didn't write this screenplay, right?
No, John Baines. No, excuse me. Maybe. All I have is H.G. Wells.
Charles Crichton he directed based on the H.G. Wells story. So I don't know. I don't know who wrote.
Yeah, all I have is H.G. Wells. I don't have another writer. So maybe, I don't know. But Charles Crichton, did you read what else he's gone on to direct?
No, I did not.
He was personally recruited from John Cleese to direct A Fish Called Wanda.
Well, good. That's a good one for him.
And he went out, but he also directed a lot of episodes of a little show that you might remember fondly, and that is Space 1999.
Yeah, well, I remember it, but not fondly. No, but
yes. But it's Martin Landau.
and Barbara Baines,
Uh,
and Maya, who had warts for eyebrows. Never mind.
Now, is Barbara Baines related to John Baines that wrote Handsome
Yeah,
Boy?
maybe. That's why. Yeah.
Okay, well, this story is basically two golfers, George Parrott and Larry Potter, who fall in love with the same woman named Mary Lee. This is a little bit of a misogynist story, I found, actually, now that I think about it. They decide to play a round of golf for her hand in marriage. Parrott wins by cheating. Potter drowns himself in a nearby lake, which I found, and this is another key I'm throwing out there, very Three Stooges, Little Rascals-esque behavior, where he just walks into the water until his hat floats and the bubbles stop coming up and he drowns. When Parrott next plays golf, he is interrupted by Potter's ghost, who demands he gives up Mary or he will continue to haunt him forever. But then he finds he's forgotten how to vanish. So on the night of Parrott and Mary's wedding, Parrott unwittingly causes himself to vanish, which made absolutely no sense to me.
Yep.
And left Potter the opportunity to marry Mary, although he's still a ghost, right? I don't get this story.
I didn't either. I didn't like it. I didn't get it.
Pictures.
I didn't like the cast. I didn't understand it. I was going, why?
I was like, H.G. Wells, you're the most known writer in this movie. What the fuck?
And this was one of your short stories. I mean, it was just it made me want to, one of the things that I hope this podcast kind of does for people is make them want to go back to source material and stuff like that, references. It made me want to go and find the short story and read it, because I've never read it before. And I've read a lot of H.G. Wells, but I've never read this story before.
Do you know what the title is? I have no idea.
It's called the
golfer story.
The story of the inexperienced ghost. That's the title.
Okay. So it sounds comedic. Ghost. Okay.
It's just, it seems weird. The research I had on it was first published in 1902 in a magazine. So it was kind of like the way King started out doing his kind of essays and short stories and stuff in magazines, which H.G. Wells did. So did Jules Verne. But
it just felt like a story that a guy that loves to play golf would write. Maybe a little lazy.
And I'm looking at them all three sitting side by side at the bar going, okay, what about polyamory here? I mean, come on, people do it all the time. What are you talking about? Why do you have to play golf for this woman's hand? That's so weird.
I know. Do you think H.G. Wells was like playing golf with one of his buddies and they both had a crush on some chick at the country club?
I'm sure that's exactly what happened. And he says,
that's why I said it's misogynistic too.
And he says, hey, who's going to get her? Well, she'll pick whoever wins this golf tournament, obviously. Yeah. And then their relationship, it was more fun than it was antagonistic. So I didn't get an even who's the antagonist, who's the protagonist, how does it work, who's the villain? There is no villain. It's just kind of, we're basically, it was weird.
It was more echoes of Clarence from It's a Wonderful Life too.
Very, very much so.
I mean, there's a lot of It's a Wonderful Life in this movie. In places, and characters in particular. And
I was wondering if they overall, if the producers or whatever, if they did this just to have a buffer between the two scarier stories. Does that make sense?
And maybe that was done intentionally because of what was going on in England at the time.
Right. Maybe. Yeah. But it's just because It's a Wonderful Life was still a year out. It didn't come out, I think, till 46 or 47. So this actually was a precursor to Clarence rather than Clarence influencing it.
Right.
You're Frank Capra now. Look, I need you to act like those guys in that weird
hearse
movie.
Driver on the bus. You need to act like him, and we'll ding a bell.
Yeah, do that
when you get your wings.
But yeah, I mean, my notes for this were: this changes the whole mood of the film. This has the worst music. Not that any of the other music was any good. This is just terrible, and it's total comic relief for no reason.
Well, see, I felt very similar to the Spielberg segment of Twilight Zone, the movie. It changed the whole flavor of that movie.
Yeah.
And then they jump back into Nightmare at 2,000 feet or whatever, 20,000 feet, and go right back into the scares. So, and that's what this movie does with the fifth story.
Yep, I give you.
Which was directed by Charles Crichton.
Yes.
No, he directed it too? Oh yeah, he directed both.
Yes.
And it was written by John Baines, the guy that wrote the Mirror one that we talked about. Okay, this one is Dr. Van Stratton's story, where he recollects interviewing a ventriloquist named Maxwell Frere, played by Michael Redgrave, who is really the only star I knew in this movie.
Yes.
So
I agree. That was the same way.
Right. He performs with a dummy named Hugo. Upon meeting the American ventriloquist Sylvester Key, Hugo continually speaks about abandoning Frere and working with Key instead. Frere attempts to silence Hugo, but Hugo bites him and draws blood, which is kind of creepy when you think about it. Later at a hotel bar, Hugo insults a woman, but Frere, of course, is blamed. Key brings Frere and Hugo to Frere's hotel room, placing Hugo on Frere's bed. The next morning, Frere accuses Key of stealing Hugo and finds Hugo in Key's room. He shoots Key and is arrested. Van Stratton arranges for Hugo to be brought to Frere's cell, where they have an argument that ends in Frere suffocating and smashing Hugo. And then later in an asylum, Frere speaks with Hugo's voice. Very Norman Bates-y, psycho-y. I liked this story, but I think I've seen this story again, maybe even multiple times.
Well,
what did you?
I mean, it's kind of like, is the clown scary or not? Okay, the ventriloquist dummy, is it scary or not? Of course it's scary.
Yeah, they're creepy.
It's animation. It's a little thing coming to life kind of thing. I do think we've seen this story or this trope several times, and we'll get to it in Keys, I'm sure.
Right.
I did think this was the scariest of all the 5 stories, but mostly because of that last shot, that last freaking shot with all the faces in the bars and the dummy getting up and going toward him. That was creepy as hell. But before the montage, before it got into the montage, Frere, when he's going crazy in that's just in the cell, that was
right.
That was
and when that dummy stood up, it was clearly a little person in a suit.
Was it, Tim? Was
in
it?
A mask? But that made it even creepier to me.
I think it was really Hugo.
It was a very noble
creepy
effort at special effects in the time of 1945 England.
Yes.
And even though it was clearly a human and not the dummy in that shot, it still was creepy to me the way it stood up and walked over to him.
Yeah, that was genuinely creepy in this whole movie, I would have to say. I thought Redgrave did a great job. I thought all the cast did a good job in this one. They gave it enough breathing room. I think, having the woman sing the jazz tune kind of padded it a little bit. I don't know if that was really necessary, but it was okay, I guess.
That's actually, I've got a note on that. That's actually kind of historic.
Oh, okay. Maybe they were going for something there.
Well, it's the fact that she is a Black woman in a movie playing a modern Black woman and not a subservient Black woman.
Because she's the club owner.
She's like the club owner. Yeah. They were praised for doing that. I've got a little quote I'll read later on.
That's awesome. But yeah, I liked the bookend. I liked the design of Hugo. I thought it was scary. I thought Redgrave did a great job of playing. Whenever you see these in previous incarnations, which I'm sure we'll talk about in Keys, or descendant recreations, it's hard to get a balance in that ventriloquist and dummy. And is he crazy or is he not? You know, I love the fact that he played him like, no, this is just Hugo. You know, and so we didn't know, is Hugo your alternate personality dude, or is Hugo a real live puppet, or what?
Right.
You know, it was really well played.
It was. And back then we didn't know as much probably about alternate personalities. So I wonder how much was really left for the audience to interpret that.
True. That's again why maybe early audiences thought this was so scary.
Ahead of its time.
Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely.
All right, that brings us to the closing bookend of the story. Basically, in the country home, Craig strangles Dr. Van Straten. Craig then hallucinates about the stories told by the other guests before awakening in his bedroom as the phone rings. He is receiving a call from Mr. Foley, inviting him to his country home to consult on renovations. Craig's wife suggests that he's spending a weekend out there might help him get rid of his nightmares. And then it ends with basically the same shot of him driving up to the house that began the movie, as you said earlier.
Yeah, and the ending credits are essentially the opening of the movie. Mm-hmm. It's him meeting the guy, shaking his hand and getting out of the car and going up to the house and all of that. So we are left to believe that all of this is a recurring cycle, that this continues and continues and continues. That
which is some weird theme about the creation of the universe. I read, I don't know if I kept it as a key, but I read it in the notes. Yeah, it's not a good theory. It's been disproved or something, but
it's not a good theory.
Yeah, but it is a cyclical approach to the Big Bang Theory, I think, or something. So that's what we have as far as the story. We kind of talked about scenes already. I did like the scenes in the mirror in particular. If I were going to recall scenes from this movie other than the ventriloquist dummy.
See, mine would be Christmas Party. I like the way that was shot and filmed, and I
liked when she was hiding,
the way she hid, and the way they kind of had a Maddie Hayes filter on her a lot of the times, which was cool. And it just had a real, I mean, without jumping to keys, but sort of, it had a real Hill House feel to me, that whole sequence. So yeah,
well, I liked it. Like Hill House too.
Yeah, I liked it a lot compared to. I mean, that would be my highlight scene, would be that. And also the whole bookend opening. It felt like a stage play to me. As a matter of fact, I was thinking, this could be adapted for a play really easily.
I was thinking the same thing, actually. That's funny that you mentioned that. And it's very British.
Yes, very British.
It's very, very British. Well, then I will move on to cast, of which I have nothing. No, just kidding. I have very little. One of the things I was going to say is that Sally Ann Howes, who played Sally O'Hara in The Christmas Story, was the last surviving credited cast member. She died on December 19th of 2021.
Wow. What was
she just died last year? Yeah. So
how old was she?
We were filming Stephen King episodes when she died.
Jeez.
Or airing them, at least.
And she was which one? She was the daughter?
She was Sally Ann Howes. I'm pretty sure that's the girl in The Christmas Story. Let me double check. Yeah, Sally O'Hara. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I called her the daughter. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think she must have been married by the time she told her story, because her last name had changed, but her name was Sally. What else do I have? The only other thing I have about this is a tease, and that is, did you know, and I bet you don't, and all you people out there can speculate on it for a couple of weeks, that the next horror movie that we are going to cover also stars Michael Redgrave?
It does?
It does. It doesn't. I don't know if you'd say stars, but he's definitely in it. He's in this one and the next one.
Not our next episode, our next horror movie.
Our next horror movie, yes. Yeah, the next episode will be a sci-fi, but then the next horror movie will have Michael Redgrave in it as well.
So please come back and see Redgrave again.
So there you go. That's a tease, folks.
Oh, there you go. That's a good one.
And then let's see. I've got FX. I have FX stuff. These are my scenes. Yeah, the hearse at the window is a good scene. The shots of Hugo standing, shots of the mirror, the other world. Awards. This movie won an award in 1946. The Locarno International Film Festival gave it most interesting screenplay.
Most interesting
and awarded it to the 5 writers mentioned. No, excuse me, to the 5 directors. I was going to give you a little example of what the Locarno Film Festival is. It's an annual film festival held every August in Locarno, Switzerland. It was founded in 1946. So this was the first year.
Yay.
That they presented this award, and it screens films in various competitive and non-competitive sections, including feature-length narrative, documentary, shorts, avant-garde, and retrospective programs. So there you go. Switzerland.
They have best screenplay, second best screenplay, and very interesting screenplay. Yes. We thought we were very interesting.
We like this. It's avant-garde.
Yeah. This is different.
This is very avant-garde, as Claudia would say in Interview with the Vampire.
I think avant-garde is a good way to get to keys of it, because I think it did set up, like you said at the very beginning, the anthology film,
Right.
And I mean, my first key, of course, is the one that everybody I think will get, which is Twilight Zone. This is so Twilight Zone in the feel, the black and white, everything. I was going, Rod Serling was going, do it more like Dead of Night. Come on. That's what we need. Yeah.
And it's not just Twilight Zone, but like you said, Twilight Zone, the movie, they're both direct keys to this.
Oh, yeah. Well, and anything I think that uses that multi-story format, like you said, the Amicus movies, Tales from the Crypt, Asylum, all of those that came out were very influenced, obviously, by this type of storytelling.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much fun. We had so much fun doing Creepshow last year that it made me think, why aren't we covering some of these movies? So I threw 3 of them into this season for that very reason. Yeah.
Well, we'll see them, I'm sure.
Yeah. We will.
I have a key that I think you might find interesting. All right. One, it's Final Destination.
Oh.
Because this movie has that kind of fatalistic feel to it. You can't tempt fate. You might try to leave early, but then something else will happen and it'll come back to get you, almost like not The Ring, because The Ring is more of a destiny fate thing, but definitely Final Destination.
Especially the first one about the race car driver.
Yeah, and the overall story
and the
of
overall
him.
arch.
Yeah, the arc. Yeah.
For sure. I did something and my notes changed. That was weird. What else do I have? I mean, I have some obvious ones. We mentioned Creepshow. We mentioned Twilight Zone. I even mentioned the Three Stooges and the Little Rascals because of that stupid guy walking out into the water and drowning himself. Yeah. And we've mentioned It's a Wonderful Life and Psycho. But 2 of the ones that all right, I'll throw this one out there. This one I want to see if you remember. Okay. The hearse driver is a very pertinent part of the movie Burnt Offerings. Betty Davis is an old woman in that movie, and she keeps having the fear of death coming after her, so much so that whenever she looks out the window, she sees a hearse driving to the house.
Okay.
And the hearse driver is really creepy. He smiles and he's just, I don't know. We'll cover that movie one day because we need to revisit that. Yeah. But a hearse plays prominently in that movie because of Betty Davis. Her little storyline in that movie, apart from Oliver Reed and
I didn't know
Karen
that.
Black.
I thought you were going like, the hearse is the hearse driver is the introduction to Dracula in the novel and in most of the stories. That's how we first meet
I guess, a key too.
Well, not really, but it is. It just the hearse driver is. My next one is The Changeling, that awesome movie. Because I'm sorry, anytime you go upstairs in an old house and find a children's playroom or a children's bedroom, it's going to remind me of The Changeling. It just always does.
Yeah, that's on Shudder too, by the way. There's a lot of good stuff on Shudder this month.
Melvin Douglas, George C. Scott. That's a great movie.
Yeah. The ball rolling down the stairs.
Rolling down the stairs. And hearing the thump in the drip in the walls. The other one is, while we're there, Hill House. This
Okay.
reminded me a lot of Hill House. Not only the
series-
movie, but the series as well.
Yeah.
The movie, because again, it's black and white. It has all of that creepy kind of tonality to it that the specifically the Christmas Story has to me. But in research, and I double check this, and so I kind of debunk it. But if anybody else is seeing something I didn't see, because again, I'm looking at it on my iPad on Fandor. But supposedly the shot where the girl is singing to the boy while she's putting him to sleep, and she sings him a little song, and he falls asleep, and she gets up and leaves the room. In the background, you can see Constance, the ghost, in the background of that shot, supposedly. However, I did it frame by frame by frame and did not see any freaking ghost.
I don't
in
recall
the
that. No.
But in Hill House, the series, the first season, he's got ghosts everywhere. There's like 37 ghosts in
Oh yeah, and that would have been really impressive had they done that.
Had they done that, I would have been impressed with it. But
yeah, for sure.
Let's see.
I have this one. I mean, you're gonna have it. I'm gonna have it, and that is, of course, and actually, it's two keys in one. Is the ventriloquist dummy story is relived basically in a Twilight Zone episode with a ventriloquist dummy, but it is done even more scarily in the late 70s by Richard Attenborough in a movie called Magic.
Please, God, can we do that movie? I love that.
I'll be honest with you. When I was looking at it as a key to this movie, I was like, we have got to do that movie. I have not seen it in so long.
Man, Anthony Hopkins at his best. Oh my God. I have that poster. I still have it. Magic is fun. We're dead. I love it. It's just, oh my gosh. If you guys have not seen that movie, go watch it right now, because it is
I mean, literally, when I used to babysit my nephews, that commercial would come on and I would run out of the room. I was like, I can't watch it because the commercial scared me.
His dummy was named Fats. I remember that. But see how imprinted that movie is?
And Anne Margaret's in it too.
Yes. Please don't kill her. Please don't kill her. Please don't kill her. Anyway, we need to do that movie.
I agree. I think that one's probably going to jump to the front of next season.
I have another one on that one, which is it's called, the title of the episode was called The Puppet Show in Buffy. First season, and it's about a ventriloquist dummy that has a demon inside it and just starts killing people. So yeah, there's a lot of those. I'm sure there's a dozen more that we have not named that are all influenced by, if he's a ventriloquist, the dummy is alive and he's really the puppet.
Well, it's the whole doll genre or subgenre of horror.
Dolls,
I mean, you could do any of those doll movies, or you know what I'm saying,
Annabelle or any of that stuff. I'm sure Annabelle is a very big key for that.
Actually, that probably is, even though I hate putting it there.
I have the It Was All a Dream ending. So like, the way they did television series like Dallas, Newhart, all of that, the whole thing of reset at the end of It's All a Dream, and or Groundhog Day, even though that's not in our genres. But that whole, we're resetting everything to the very beginning.
Actually, I would almost say Groundhog Day more than Dallas and Newhart. Yeah,
because it's a reset.
It's
we're just
the cycle
back.
Thing.
Yep. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that brings me to the last one I had, which is what I mentioned earlier. And that is that cosmologists Fred Hoyle, Thomas Gold, and Herman Bondi developed the steady state theory of the universe, an alternative to the Big Bang, after seeing this movie. They said that the circular nature of the plot is what inspired this theory.
The single state theory?
Yeah, so you can look this up, the single state theory of the universe. But I think it was debunked, like not very far after they introduced it. I think scientists went, no, we're real scientists. You're not. But I could be wrong. I read that it was debunked, though. I did read that. They were cosmologists. I guess, is that some form of astronomical science?
Well, cosmologists are creation of the universe.
I thought they were the people that put makeup on your face.
No. or they're the ones that make the cranberry juice drinks. Cosmologists. No. Make sure you include the ones we mentioned, like Goosebumps, Blythe Spirit, It's a Wonderful Life.
Blythe Spirit for sure. Goosebumps.
You said EC Comics at one point,
Mhm.
which is very true. This is a very EC comic kind of story. But yeah, that's all I have too.
Okay.
I mean, I think again, it's one of those where, I mean, I know if it came down to it, you would not recommend Deadly Mantis, but I think we would both recommend this, even though it's not horribly horrifying or scary.
No, it's one of
Still-
those that's for historical reference more than
Yeah.
anything, probably.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I found it very interesting. I actually had a lot of trivia on this. Let me see if any of it's worth a damn.
Sure.
You mentioned that the print that was too long for U.S. distributors. That's why they cut the golfing and the Christmas Story. So that was a U.S. thing.
Okay.
Oh, this is what I wanted to read to you about the club owner. Did I put her in the cast? I don't think I did because I didn't go very far down, and she was a smaller character. But there's a black woman that owns a nightclub in this one. I think it's the club where Hugo performs.
Yes.
And the actress's name was Elizabeth Welch. She played Beulah, and that it was a breakthrough in the portrayal of black women in film. For the first time in a film, a black woman is portrayed as an independent, successful, and resourceful woman. She played an important part in the development of the plot and was featured in the film's billing with such eminent players as Michael Redgrave and Mervyn Johns.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's another reason why this film should be watched, just because that is, probably one of the first times we got to see something like that.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree with that. And it didn't register when I was watching it, but I could easily understand that it's a good point.
Yeah. As soon as I saw it, I was like, wow, this is kind of cool, but it is also England and not the United States, which speaks volumes as well. I've got the circle plot of Dead of Night, inspired Fred Hoyle's steady state theory. That's more of that. Oh, Martin Scorsese placed Dead of Night as the 5th on his list of the 11 scariest horror films.
Who did that?
Martin Scorsese. He saw it as a kid and that dummy terrified him. I'm telling you, it's the dummy.
We need to talk to Martin. I mean, his movie is scarier than this movie. The Shutter Island is a lot scarier than this movie.
Writer-director Christopher Smith said he was inspired by the circular narrative of Dead of Night while making his 2009 film Triangle, which I watched and talked about on this show, I believe, in one of my genre topics.
I think you
about them going out on the boat and the weirdness with the Twilight Zone weirdness with the boat being empty.
Yes.
So I had completely forgotten about that. I'm going to put that as a key.
Yeah, because I've never seen it. So
it's actually pretty good. I liked it. Maybe I should put that on the list if I haven't. And then nothing else. Just a shot of Redgrave from the film is featured on the cover of Maryland, an album by The Good, the Bad, and the Queen. I've never even heard of them. Who is that?
Yeah, whoever.
I don't know why I put that in my notes. Why did I put that in my notes, David?
I don't.
So that's going to do us, I think.
That being said, we are done for this particular week. We want to thank all of you who have listened and watched us so far this week, and we hope you'll come back. We hope you will subscribe down there, ring the bell, do all those fun things that you do. Leave us a review. Like I said at the beginning, if you leave us a review on iTunes, even if it's a 3-word, I like it, or whatever, that helps us tremendously.
It doesn't smell.
It doesn't smell, sort of thing. And we do, if you would like to support us and support us continuing doing this, we do have a Patreon, of course, as most podcasters and YouTubers do. But on that, you get some special things. You get some special things we do only for our Patreon guests and supporters, including 2 alternate podcasts and adventures. One is on the X-Files, and we've covered 2 seasons of that so far. And one is on Classic Trek, the original series. And we've done the first season. We're just just starting into our deep dive of the second season. So until next week, when we'll be in outer space or somewhere sci-fi, we hope. We'll see you guys next time. See you next week, Tim.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. See you then.
All right.
All right. Bye.
You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.